We know of no specific credible threat of a Paris-like attack directed against the U.S. homeland. We are, and we continue to be, and we have been concerned about copycat-like attacks, as Director Comey said on Thursday. We're concerned about the type of attack we've seen by a so-called lone wolf.
Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson seeking to reassure us that there are no credible terror threats against our nation as security has stepped up ahead of Thanksgiving Day. Two different alerts issued amid increased threats from terrorists around the world. The first comes from our State Department, a worldwide travel alert for Americans planning to travel overseas. The second, internally from the FBI, warning police departments to be on the lookout for a Paris copycat-style attack. Both agencies insist their alerts are not meant to incite fear, but a reminder for all of us to remain vigilant, especially at this time of year in crowded places. For more, let's welcome in Ryan Mauro, National Security Analyst for the Clarion Project. He's joining us via Skype from New Jersey, and also with us, the host of Renegade Republican, Dan Bongino. Dan's a former Secret Service agent and also a veteran of the NYPD. He's Skyping in from Palm City, Florida. We thank you both for your time tonight here on Newsmax Prime. Dan, the FBI is most worried about self-radicalized individuals here committing attacks. In other words, the lone wolf or the lone rat. Do you share that same concern?
Yeah, they should be worried. This is a lot of people, not just me, a number of people in the security arena and intelligence arena have been warning about soft target attacks in the United States for a very long time. And that's primarily for two reasons. The first reason being, I call them the investigative breadcrumbs. When we were working big, complex federal investigations, contacts, financial networks, phone calls, credit card transactions, those things leave clues. Those clues can be uncovered and these big terrorist cells can be broken up. Think of the 9/11 attack. You were talking about roughly $500,000 spent, flight training, all of that left clues that could have been broken up in advance. When you're talking about a small arms tactical assault with a small group of potentially less than 10 terrorists bent on killing and not worried about any kind of an egress route, very few investigative breadcrumbs are left behind. Combine that with the fact that very little training is required to do this. You just need a trigger finger and the willingness to kill people in a savage manner. And yeah, they should be worried. It's justified.
Ryan, in your opinion, which is the more probable threat to the homeland, these lone wolf attacks or a full-scale operation? And in your opinion, Ryan, is our nation prepared for either situation?
Well, you're never going to be prepared enough because we live in a democracy and there's an unlimited amount of targets, and you can't 24/7 monitor every extremist that comes across your path. It takes up too many resources. Now, what's most likely in terms of an attack is still what's called the lone wolf, although I don't really love that terminology because they're never really alone. They're usually communicating with someone online. And the reason that has a greater likelihood is just because it's easier to do. There's still a significant likelihood of an attack like what you saw in Paris happening in the United States. There's a good chance of that happening. But as for the State Department warnings, I have mixed feelings about it because on the one hand, they kind of have to say something because of the increased threat, but there's nothing specific warranting that threat. So did it really accomplish anything? Not really. It's just that if there is an attack, then the State Department doesn't want to be caught in a position where it says, oh, well, we didn't warn anybody.
So this is really inoculation with a word of preparation. Dan, let me get your opinion, because you've been involved in law enforcement and with the Secret Service. What is the toughest thing about a lone wolf attack? It's sheer unpredictability?
Yeah, absolutely. And two areas we're limited in the United States right now with our federal law enforcement infrastructure is, number one, the intelligence sharing is still terrible. There's a myth out there that after 9/11, all these individual silos amongst the alphabet soup of federal agencies on the horizontal and vertically with local, county, and state law enforcement officials, that those have been broken down. I can tell you that's just not true. They're still up there. I remember a case specifically in the Secret Service with a counterterror intersection point where there was a nexus to a local counterterror case, and I couldn't even get the information from the FBI without information being redacted. It was my case. I was the one providing some of the information that was redacted. Combine that with the limits to physical surveillance, getting away from the metadata argument for a moment. We just don't have enough people, as Ryan accurately stated, to watch people all the time. And yeah, you're looking at a witch's brew, potentially.
Well, according to the FBI, 60% of active shooter attacks are over before law enforcement ever gets there. And now law enforcement agencies around the country are trying to educate the public on how to survive on their own. Here's what the Chief of Police for the District of Columbia, Kathy Lanier, has to say.
I always say if you can get out, getting out's your first option, your best option. If you're in a position to try and take the gunman down, to take the gunman out, it's the best option for saving lives before police can get there. And that's, that's kind of counterintuitive to what cops always tell people, right? We always tell people don't take action, call 911, don't intervene in the robbery. We've never told people take action. This is a different scenario.
Well, Ryan, I got to tell you, I was in Congress post 9/11, and the thought changed radically to take action. But I guess the distinction here is with reference to active shooters, lone wolves. About 30 seconds, Ryan.
Sure, and there's a few different things I think need to be encouraged by the government. If they don't want to get into the gun control argument, even basic self-defense tactics can be very effective in taking down a gunman. People would be surprised how easy that is to do if you know what you're doing. Tasers is something that I think should be allowed. Certain places you can't have them. So there's a lot of options besides getting into the gun control argument that we can encourage in order to make the public safer.
And we will have to leave it right there. Ryan Mauro in New Jersey, Dan Bongino in Palm City, Florida. You have our thanks. Up next, a political perspective on President Obama's foreign policy. Stay with us.